Today's story begins on December 4th, 2011. On that day, police in Jiang, Guangdong Province, China, suddenly received an urgent report.
What's the emergency?
Beneath a large bridge, on the still surface of the water, residents had discovered the naked, decapitated body of a woman. That scene must have been seared into the memories of those present, as well as the investigators who had to confront it firsthand. Forensic specialists were immediately called to the site. Through examination, they determined the victim was a young woman, slightly over 20 years old, approximately 1.6 meters tall. But that was all they could find. There was no head, no clothing, no personal documents of any kind. The investigation hit a dead end almost immediately, with no path forward. The entire Jiang police force mobilized every resource they had, searching the surrounding area extensively. Yet they were unable to confirm the woman's identity, and no clues to the killer emerged. The case became an unanswered mystery, a cold file locked away, haunting both the investigators and the community. A disappearance shrouded in secrecy, a brutal death, and a murderer still lurking in the shadows. Time moved on. Then, on June 12, 2012, another event occurred, like the first puzzle piece in a far more complex criminal picture. In Jiangmen, a young woman went to police to report that her mother, Huang Feng, had mysteriously vanished. At the time, Feng was 46 years old, divorced, and living alone. Her daughter explained that her mother had left home to travel to Shantou for a new job, supposedly arranged by a friend she'd met online. But that very evening, Huang Feng's phone suddenly went dead, cutting off all contact. Her daughter searched desperately, reaching out to everyone she could think of, but no one had any idea where her mother had gone. When investigators checked Feng's call history, they discovered a suspicious detail. She had been in frequent contact with a mobile phone number in Shantou. What stood out was that the number had no registered owner information. This anomaly immediately raised red flags. Just before Feng's total disappearance, her final phone call had been to that same mysterious number. Investigators could not ignore the question. What had happened to Huang Feng? And could that number be the key to unraveling the mystery? Barely 20 days after Huang Feng went missing, another tragedy struck in Shantou, bringing with it clues that seemed deliberately and carefully set in place. A few days before July 3rd, 2012, a woman named Zhang Jing, who worked as a foot massage therapist in Zhongshan, met a man online. He claimed to be the owner of a large private company. With sweet promises and visions of a more comfortable life, Jing put her trust in him. Carrying a small gift of preserved plums, she set off for Shantou to meet the mysterious man. Around 3 p.m. that day, Jing arrived at the Shantou bus station after a long journey. Just 29 minutes later, at 3:29 p.m., security cameras captured her leaving the station and getting on a motorcycle, heading to their meeting point. The unknown man had left his small hotel at 3:51 p.m., waiting for Zhang Jing near a vegetable market. At exactly 3:55 p.m., both Jing and the man made calls to confirm their locations to each other. Surveillance footage shows Jing on the phone, her expression still likely filled with hope for a brighter future. Only 7 minutes later, at 4:02 p.m., she and the stranger walked into the small hotel together and went straight to room 306. At around 4:10 p.m., when everything seemed to be proceeding as normal, a guest in room 307, right next door, was suddenly startled by faint cries for help from a woman in room 306. The pleas were weak, desperate. And then, they abruptly went silent, leaving behind a chilling stillness that filled the air. That was the moment Zhang Jing was murdered. At 5:13 p.m. that same day, the man walked out of room 306 alone. He had taken the time to meticulously clean the scene, wiping down every corner and surface, leaving the room almost completely free of any trace of the crime. Every step appeared to have been calculated in advance, but the story didn't end there. At around 9 p.m., the man returned to the hotel carrying a large box, apparently intending to move the victim's body for disposal. Fate, however, seemed determined to drag his crime into the light. At exactly 10 p.m. on July 3, 2012, as night had fully settled over Shantou, A female hotel staff member cleaning the third-floor staircase noticed small, bright red drops of blood on the steps. She recalled seeing the guest from room 306 earlier, heading downstairs with a large suitcase, and how he had awkwardly brushed off her question about the blood on his hands. Sensing something was wrong, the employee decided to enter room 306 to investigate. Inside the bathroom, she found a black travel bag that felt unusually heavy and rigid. When she unzipped it, a horrifying sight emerged. Inside was a human head. Stunned and horrified, she screamed and immediately contacted police. Xiangfu police arrived quickly at the scene. An emergency task force was formed under the command of Director Xiaodong, with the mission of solving the case as swiftly as possible. Forensic examination revealed that the victim was a woman around 30 years old with long hair. She had died from asphyxiation, strangled with a red cord. Her body had been dismembered, with only the head left inside the bag. The crime scene in room 306 showed signs of an extremely thorough cleaning, almost no trace evidence remaining. The perpetrator had made every effort to eliminate all clues. The only items found were a faint male fingerprint on the mattress and an opened packet of preserved plums. However, the fingerprint was too faint to match against the database. The hotel's security camera system was damaged, capturing only incomplete footage, not enough to identify either the suspect or the victim. Worse still, the hotel's guest registration records were incomplete, adding another obstacle to the investigation. Initially, police focused on establishing the identities of both the victim and the suspect, two critical keys to solving the case. They knew that for a crime of this severity, public pressure would be immense. Facing a murder case shrouded in mystery and short on leads, investigators began searching for even the smallest clues. The packet of preserved plums found at the scene became a sliver of hope. On its wrapper was a stamp from the Zhongshan City Materials Price Inspection Office, suggesting that the plums may have been purchased in Zhongshan, hinting that the victim might have come from there or passed through before arriving in Xiangfu. This seemingly minor clue opened a crucial path forward. Xiangfu police immediately coordinated with officers in Zhongshan and neighboring provinces. They focused their search on long-distance bus routes traveling from Zhongshan to Xiangfu on the day of the murder. After hours of reviewing and cross-checking, they finally pinpointed one long-distance bus running the Zhuhai-Xiangtu route, which passed through Zhongshan and arrived in Xiangtu at around 3 p.m. The very afternoon when Zhang Jing met her tragic fate, the task force immediately contacted the driver of that bus. To their surprise, he clearly remembered a single female passenger who had boarded in Zhongshan. His description of her appearance closely matched what could be made out of Jing from the blurry surveillance footage. This match significantly strengthened the theory about the victim's origin. Next came information from Zhongshan police. They had received a report about a woman named Jing, who had suddenly gone missing. Her age and physical description were a complete match for the victim in the Xiangtu case. Investigators quickly reached out to Jing's husband. He told them that on the morning of July 3rd, Zhang Jing had left home saying she had work at her office. At first, he wasn't worried. She occasionally worked late and stayed away for several days. But by July 5th, when he could no longer reach her by phone, his concern grew, and he filed a missing person report with police. When investigators showed him the surveillance footage, the husband was devastated. Through tears, he confirmed that the woman in the red top in the video was indeed his wife, Jing. But one major question remained. Why had Jing traveled 400 kilometers from Zhongshan to Xiangtu to meet a strange man in a small hotel, after telling her husband she was going to work? Jing's husband insisted she had no close male friends in Zhongshan, and he had never heard of her knowing anyone in Xiangtu. The man seen with her in the surveillance footage was a complete stranger to him. Fighting back tears, he said, "Now that I know, all I can do is cry. There's nothing else I can do." Police then checked Jing's phone records. They found she had been in frequent contact with a number in Xiangtu, and at precisely 3:55 p.m. on the day of the murder, she had called that number. Notably, at that exact moment, surveillance video showed Zhang Jing on the phone, and at the same time, the man believed to be the suspect, waiting for her near the scene, was also seen holding a phone to his ear. This perfect alignment of timing and gestures was irrefutable evidence that this man was the one who had arranged to meet Jing. But when police attempted to trace the mysterious number, they discovered it had no registered owner. The lead was once again interrupted. Undeterred, investigators worked around the clock, reviewing hundreds of hours of surveillance footage, searching every alley in Shantou for 3 consecutive days. Once they had the lead identifying the victim as Jing, they didn't hesitate to drive 400 kilometers to Zhongshan that very night. Despite exhaustion and repeated dead ends, task force leader Director Xiao Xiaodong remained steadfast. He reminded his team that over the years, their criminal investigation unit had been recognized with second-class merit awards and 3 officers had earned top individual honors. He assured them they had both the experience and the skill to solve the case. This unwavering determination fueled the entire team. They dug deeper into the activity data from the mysterious number Jing had called. Although the SIM card had been purchased in Shantou, most of its activity had taken place in Jiang, a nearby city. This finding led the task force to shift their search for the suspect toward Jiang. With assistance from Jiang police, a crucial lead emerged on the evening of July 7, 2012. In a village on the outskirts of Jiang, someone reported having seen a man whose appearance closely matched that of the suspect in the Shantou case. The village was a sprawling area with thousands of residents, a mix of locals and many tenants from other regions. Could this be the very killer they had been hunting? To avoid alerting the suspect and to maintain the secrecy of the operation, 3 reconnaissance teams immediately set out for Jiang. It was already past midnight, but they didn't hesitate. Under the cover of darkness, they slipped quietly into the village, launching a discreet, low-profile investigation designed not to arouse suspicion. Caution was paramount. Even the smallest mistake could give the suspect a chance to escape. Their persistence soon paid off. On the morning of July 8, 2012, at around 9 a.m., the identity of the man who matched the suspect's description was confirmed. He was Zeng Xiangfu, a 37-year-old man originally from Guizhou province. He had come to Shantou 8 or 9 years earlier and once worked at a printing factory. But for the past 2 years, he had been unemployed, scraping by as an unlicensed motorcycle taxi driver. When the task force compared an old household registration photo of Xiangfu, taken more than 15 years earlier, with the surveillance footage from the Shantou murder scene, along with the hotel staff's description of the suspect's physical features, they were certain. Zeng Xiangfu was the man responsible for the horrific killing at the Shantou hotel. After 5 relentless days and nights of pursuit, he was finally in custody. His arrest opened the door to uncovering all the truths behind this mystery. Police hoped he would give a full confession. However, Xiangfu's first explanation stunned everyone. He claimed that all his actions stemmed from a so-called righteous purpose. He admitted that on the surface it might look like he was conning women for money and romance, but deep down he insisted he was trying to teach them a lesson, to make them realize they shouldn't value money so much. Xiangfu recounted his past. He had once been married in his hometown of Guizhou. In 2004, his wife had moved with him to Shantou for work, but before long, she left him for a wealthier man. Later, he entered a relationship with another woman named Mei, also from Guizhou and just 25 years old. Xiangfu said he loved her deeply, but that relationship too didn't last. Mei also left him, and again, the reason was his lack of money. She said if we wanted to get married, I needed to have a house, he lamented. But how could I possibly buy a house right away when I'd only just started working as a laborer? Repeated heartbreaks, coupled with his growing resentment over women's fixation on money, left Zeng Xiangfu feeling deeply wounded. He began spending more time online, chatting with women in virtual spaces. Yet even there, he said, he encountered the same coldness whenever he revealed that he was just an ordinary wage earner. He complained that if he told women he earned only 2,000 to 3,000 yuan a month, no one would bother to talk to him. But when he tried changing his identity online, posing as a wealthy owner of a private business, the women's attitudes shifted instantly. According to him, they became warm, eager, and actively pursued him, entirely because of money. The virtual world had satisfied Zeng Xiangfu's vanity, but in reality, he was still just an unemployed laborer. That stark contrast made him feel even more abandoned and looked down upon. From there, a deep resentment began to grow in his heart toward women he believed were vain and unfaithful. He decided he would punish such women by making them experience bitter disappointment in real life. Xiangfu admitted that he wanted revenge. He wanted these women to walk into his trap so they would realize they shouldn't be blinded by money. With that twisted motive, he happened to meet Jing online. He claimed that when Jing learned he was supposedly a wealthy business owner, she showed special enthusiasm and even suggested meeting in person. On July 3rd, he arranged for Jing to come to Shantou and took her to the small hotel. Xiangfu told police that at first, he only intended to take Jing's valuables after they were intimate, so she would feel deceived and learn a lesson. But when he demanded her money, Jing reacted fiercely and began screaming for help. She kept shouting, "Help! Somebody help!" he said. In a panic and a fit of rage, he claimed he had no choice but to cover her mouth and use the red cord he always carried to strangle her to death. Was Jing truly vain or unfaithful, as Xiangfu claimed? We will never know. She is gone forever. But one thing is certain. Jing trusted Xiangfu. She believed in his promises enough to travel more than 400 kilometers alone to Shantou to meet a man she had never met in person. She could never have imagined that what awaited her was not love or a new job, but a brutal slaughter. During the investigation, police uncovered something even more disturbing. Jing was not the only woman from out of town who had traveled to Shantou to meet Xiangfu. What had happened to the others? Could he have been responsible for multiple murders? Investigators began to feel a deep unease, suspecting that this might not be an isolated case, but potentially part of a series of serial killings. Inside Xiangfu's rented home, police found many troubling items. They discovered a laptop filled with family photos of various women, none of them the victim, Jing. They also found 2 women's mobile phones, which did not belong to Jing or to the owner of the laptop. In a drawer, they uncovered 2 women's wristwatches, and in the wardrobe, numerous items of women's clothing. Xiangfu lived alone. So why would his home be filled with women's belongings? Police also discovered that Zeng Xiangfu maintained 8 different QQ messaging accounts and had over 3,000 online contacts, the vast majority of them women. Even more chilling, after murdering Jing, he had still been arranging to meet other women, right up until the day after he was arrested. Investigators believed that the women's belongings in his home likely came from out-of-town women who had met with Xiangfu. Coupled with his apparent skill in committing crimes and the unsolved headless body case in Jiyang, detectives began to suspect something far more terrifying. Had these other women suffered the same fate as Jing? Though Xiangfu remained defiant and refused to fully cooperate during interrogation, that didn't stop investigators. They began combing through the complete chat history from all of his QQ accounts. The analysis revealed a chilling truth. At least 5 other women had once expressed plans to travel to Shantou to meet him. What stood out was that after arriving, these women either argued with Xiangfu and left abruptly, or vanished entirely. Investigators suspected these women might also have been in danger. Police tried to contact each of them one by one. Some, due to personal reasons or other circumstances, refused to cooperate. But among those who did respond, 3 other cases were brought to light. These 3 women admitted they had been robbed by Xiangfu. Perhaps out of shame or a desire to save face, they had never reported the crimes to police. It turned out that the laptop, the 2 women's cell phones, and the motorcycle found in Xiangfu's rented home were all stolen from these victims. Xiangfu's usual method was to rob the women after having sex with them. To prevent them from chasing him down or reporting to the police, he would take not only their valuables but also their clothing. That explained why his home contained so many women's belongings. He used 2 primary tactics to lure women online. First, he played on romance, convincing them to come and live with him. Second, he posed as the owner of a construction materials business, offering them jobs with generous salaries. He promised that if they came to work for him, he would pay them an attractive monthly wage. Even after uncovering 3 additional robberies, investigators still felt a heavy sense of unease. These thefts didn't explain Xiangfu's apparent experience in committing crimes or his brutal skill in dismembering a body. More importantly, the unsolved case of the headless body found under the large bridge in Jiang in December 2011 still loomed. Could Xiangfu have been involved? He continued to flatly deny it. Investigators analyzed the timeline and realized that, at the time of that murder, the suspect had been living in Shantou, just upstream from the section of the river where the dismembered body had been found in Jiang. The distance was only a few kilometers, and the method of killing was similar, making suspicions about Xiangfu even stronger. To search for evidence and break through Zeng Xiangfu's psychological defenses, police adopted a pincer strategy: pressure from outside and persuasion from within. One team of investigators was dispatched to his hometown in Guizhou. Xiangfu had grown up in a poor mountain family. His parents expressed deep pain and profound disappointment. They spoke of the hard work they had put into raising 4 children, and now, to learn that their son had become a murderer and a thief, they were devastated. They had always hoped their children would have bright, successful futures, but now, those hopes had been destroyed. After learning about Xiangfu's family background and upbringing, investigators adjusted their interrogation approach. They avoided talking directly about the crimes and instead began conversations about his life, family bonds, and his parents' sacrifices. Gradually, this approach began to work. Xiangfu started showing emotion, tears running down his face, saying that he had been thinking a lot about his parents' hard work in raising him. Meanwhile, police continued their search for outside leads, combing through Xiangfu's phone records. They discovered a number from Jiang Men that had contacted him very frequently before June 12, 2012, sometimes more than 10 times a day. But after that date, all communication suddenly stopped. This irregularity caught the attention of police. They checked the Jiang Men phone number in their internal system and discovered its owner was a woman named Feng. Feng's daughter had reported her mother missing on June 13th. Choking back tears, the daughter told police that her mother had said she was going to Shantou for work, but her phone had been unreachable since that day. Huang Feng had left home on June 12, 2012, telling her daughter that a friend in Shantou had arranged a job for her. Her phone was switched off that same evening. Her daughter searched everywhere for nearly a month, but found no trace of her. Huang Feng, 46, had been divorced for many years. She was sociable, enjoyed meeting people online, and even went by the nickname Phoenix Fei Fei. When police reviewed her online chat history, they discovered that the friend she was going to Shantou to rely on was none other than Xiangfu, the man who had been posing online as a business owner. Although Xiangfu tried to hide it, investigators could see that he appeared anxious, drinking water repeatedly. Police analyzed his behavior and concluded that he was struggling to suppress the psychological pressure. After more than an hour of silence, with officers patiently waiting and increasing the psychological pressure, Xiangfu finally broke. He admitted to killing Feng. He told police, "I had already tricked her into coming here. I thought she looked pretty nice, and I planned to tell her the truth about my situation, to see if she still wanted to stay with me." He explained that when he first met Feng online, she was unemployed. Using flattery and deception, he told her he was a wealthy business owner and could offer her a position at his company. Feng had been lured to Shantou on June 12th. But when she arrived and realized there was no job, that she had been deceived, she had a fierce argument with Zeng Xiangfu. He strangled her to death and then dismembered her body. One investigator remarked that his act was not only cruel in the moment of murder, but even more brutal afterward. Feng was originally from Guangxi. She had divorced 15 years earlier and moved to Jiangmen with her daughter. For years, the two had depended on each other to survive. Now, with her mother gone forever, the daughter said she felt as though her entire world had collapsed. Sobbing, she said, It was just me and my mom here. Now that she's gone, I'm completely alone. It's like I don't even have a home anymore. 2 lives had been taken, 2 families destroyed. But the question of the headless body found in Jiang in December 2011 still remained. Was it connected to Xiangfu? Police continued their search for answers. Investigators pressed Xiangfu to think carefully and told him that their conversation that day was meant to help him understand the need to trust in the capabilities of the police. They assured him that no matter what tricks he tried or what he attempted to hide, they had the means to uncover the truth, and urged him to unburden himself. After hours of psychological pressure, as some of his emotions eased, Xiangfu began to let go of the weight he had been carrying. At last, he confessed everything. He was, in fact, the killer in the headless body case under the large bridge in Jiyang. However, the victim in that case was not an online acquaintance, but his ex-girlfriend, Mei. Xiangfu said that he and Mei frequently argued about money. During one particularly heated fight, Mei told him she wanted to leave him. For Xiangfu, already deeply scarred by previous failed relationships, this sent him into a blinding rage. He believed Mei was abandoning him solely because he had no money. In a fit of anger, he strangled her to death. He then disposed of her body by dumping it into the river from the large bridge in Jiyang. After the trial, Xiangfu was convicted of murder, robbery, and multiple other charges. He was sentenced to death. As for the victims' families, Huang Feng's daughter lost her mother, feeling as if her entire world had collapsed, left with no one to rely on. Zhang Jing's family had to endure the shock and unbearable grief of losing a loved one in such a tragic way. Even Xiangfu's own parents suffered unspeakable pain, watching their only son become a killer. The price paid was not Xiangfu's alone. It extended to all those connected to the case. The women he robbed, the families torn apart. All of it was the direct consequence of his actions. This case stands as a stark warning about the dangers lurking in the virtual world. Behind the glossy profiles and sweet promises can hide a dark and sinister plot. Gullibility, material desire, and the urge to escape reality made the victims easy prey for the predator. Zeng Xiangfu's hatred, delusions, and warped psychology transformed him into a cold-blooded killer who destroyed not only the lives of others, but also his own future. The greatest lesson is vigilance. Always remain clear-headed and rational when connecting with others online, especially when an online relationship moves into the real world. There is no shortcut to genuine happiness, and certainly no justification for using crime to punish or teach someone a lesson. Real life is where we face challenges head-on, not a place to hide in fantasies we've constructed. Trust in justice and in the power of the law. Justice may come late, but it never disappears. That concludes today's video. See you in the next one. Goodbye.